Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever or wherever you're watching or listening to us. This is the Awesemo Nhl Dfs Strategy Show, and I am your host, Michael Clifford. Joining me today in the throne room for a duel with Supreme Emperor Snoke is our resident single-entry Jedi Master, Josh Harris. Josh, how we doing today, bud?
Pretty good. It's back to being New Jersey winter again. It was 70 yesterday, and it is 28 degrees today. So that sucks. Everyone's got a little stuffy, but we got a big slate tonight. Pretty excited about it. Yeah, Avery's pointing at him. He's got a nice little cold.
Yeah, wild weather up here too. Yesterday I went for a walk with shorts on, and today I had to bundle up, double jacket to go for my walk. So wild weather, wild slate last night too. It was, I don't want to say quiet because Edmonton kind of did their thing against their game, but everything kind of seemed, straight and narrow until the final 45 minutes of the entire slate. And San Jose just went absolutely nuclear in that third period last night.
Yeah. And 3,900 hurdle was popular. So, and LeBanc had a really good game, which is like, he's not like Jordan Stahl level fade for me, but like if I have to leave someone off the Sharks top line, it's usually LeBanc. He's just a big softy, but he had a really good game. So I did okay. Didn't have enough Sharks.
Yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes you just don't have the right players. I managed a profit last night, thankfully. Thank you, Kirill Kaprizov, for dragging me to that profit. Thank you for scoring your hat-trick goal with 49 seconds left in the game in a 3-0 game when the goalie was still in the net. That was awesome.
I was looking at shift chart from that game. He only played like one shift in the first period, like in the first half of the first period. Like, I don't know what happened. He played like 48 seconds.
I don't know either, but he got there for us. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Congrats to Coates in our Slack. He took down the 3 max last night. Good job on him. Hopefully we can have somebody else take down something tonight. While you guys are here, if you could, please like and subscribe. Helps grow this channel, helps us to the top of the algorithm, keeps these shows coming on a near daily basis. And today's show is sponsored by JockMKT. If you haven't heard, JockMKT has turned fantasy sports into a stock exchange. Forget waiting until the end of the game to make money. JockMKT allows you to buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money with guaranteed payouts for all shares at the end of each night. With daily markets for NBA, NHL, and PGA, you can make real money every hour, every minute, every second of any game or match. Use the pregame IPO to pick up shares of your favorite players and buy more, sell, or hold during the game based on your own analysis. Download the app to get started and use our exclusive Awesemo promo code Awesemo NHL50 for a $50 bonus on your first deposit. That's right. Awesemo NHL50 is an exclusive offer only for the Awesemo community. Use it for your first deposit match up to $50. This promo expires Saturday. That's today. So be sure to get started on the JockMKT today. And our producer, Tyler, who just rang that bell for us. had a good night on Jock Market last night. He actually bought shares of Adam Larson. Adam Larson put up an assist and 6 blocks for the Oilers, sold them towards the end of the game, made a cool profit. So Tyler can make money. You guys can make money. We can all make money together. Head on over to Jock Market. Awesemo NHL 50 is the code. All right. Like Josh mentioned, we have a ton of games to get to today, 10 game slate. So let's get right to it. First game on the docket, we have Pittsburgh with a 3.4 implied goal total. They're going into Buffalo. The Sabres have a 2.5 implied goal total. Buffalo is going to be without Jack Eichel. Looks like it might be for the rest of the season now. They're saying 2 months, and I think the final day of the season is May 11th. So unless they go on a miracle run, Eichel's season may be over, and they're probably going to be without Dylan Cousins as well. Eric Stahl is still around, but that effectively leaves them without a top line center. Kind of a messy night for them. I was telling Josh before we came on the air that I was pretty much going to be off Pittsburgh one tonight, thinking that their ownership would be super chalky. But according to our top stacks tool, they aren't going to be nearly as chalky as I thought they would be, with the entire stack coming in between 5% and 6%. So seems like Pittsburgh with a good total, with a good leverage on our top stacks, might be a target tonight. So Pittsburgh's definitely going to garner some interest. Pittsburgh one in particular. But what all do you like here, Josh?
Yeah, so the first thing I noticed was like Pittsburgh's price, because normally they're like 18, 19-ish, but today they're over 22,000. So that's probably why their ownership is depressed. But like they're getting a banged up Buffalo team. No Eichel, like you said, no Dylan Cousins. So Riley Sheehan slots in on the top line with Hall and Reinhart. And that second line is, Tobias Reeder has to play in the top 6. Whatever Jeff Skinner did to like deserve the bottom 6 in Buffalo, we'll never know. Maybe there'll be like a 30 for 30. Later on. But like this Pitt one, I'm normally off Pittsburgh, but because their ownership's so low and I don't want to say overpriced, but they're perceived overpriced maybe. I think this is a really good spot for them, especially like you look at their ownership, like of that top line, Sidney Crosby is the highest owned at 5.8% projected. So they fully correlated power play one. I don't know if they're going to see the top line. They might see the Stahl line, but like Eric Stahl's play has fallen off a cliff since last year. So these are just primetime matchups for Pittsburgh today. Pittsburgh 1, even Pittsburgh 2. Like I know a lot of people aren't going to like playing Evan Rodriguez, but the Malkin Kapanen pairing has been good together. You can full stack that line for under 14,000, and their ownership is low too. And you can also power play stack the Pens here tonight. With the injuries, I would imagine there's going to be players out of place, obviously, so they might be apt to take more penalties. And Carter Hutton's in net. It's not like it's Linus Ullmark. Carter Hutton, for people say, oh, he has eye problems. Regardless if his eyes are fixed or not, he's still not a great goalie. So I think I'm going to be heavy on Pittsburgh tonight, which is rare for me. But I really like the spot, and I'm kind of way under the field. I might even completely fade Buffalo. There might be a defenseman or two I might take a stab on as a one-off, but there's really not much I like on the Buffalo side.
Yeah, I'm with you on Buffalo. There just really isn't a whole lot here. Riley Sheehan, like that's a guy who's pretty much a waiver pickup every year. He's now centering the top line. Hall and Reinhart might be good enough to float him, but I don't want to take that chance going into that Pittsburgh top line. Like, on top of it, on top of Riley Sheehan not being that great, it's just a tough matchup. So yeah, I'm pretty much out on Buffalo altogether. I think our boy Matt Irwin might actually be in play again. Matt Irwin paired with Rasmus Ristolainen, loves the block shots. His prices started to creep up a little bit, but he's a favorite of ours. So Matt Irwin, a little bit punty, might be fine. But I think that's it for me on the Buffalo side. I'm with you on Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh top line is really my focus here. Pittsburgh power play stack as well. We talked about the Pittsburgh power play. It started real slow this year for the first few weeks, but it started to come around more middle of the pack towards the top 10 over the last month. So that's obviously a really good sign. Buffalo doesn't take a lot of penalties is the thing. Like I think they're the least penalized team in the NHL, but I'll take the chance, like you said, with a banged up Buffalo team seemingly playing with absolutely no confidence right now. go up against what is one of the best teams in the East in Pittsburgh. So I'm with you. Pittsburgh won. Blue line, I talked about Matt Irwin. I'm probably going to correlate Chris Letang. The one guy that jumped out to me is Cody Ceci. He managed a ton of minutes last game, up to 23 minutes last game, with John Marino out of the lineup. If he's going to play comfortably 20 plus minutes, I'm probably going to play Cody Ceci.
Yeah, I mean, you have to get past the name, right? You know who Cody Ceci is. Like, he's not a great hockey player, but like, you don't need to be great at hockey to accrue fantasy points, right? You just need to get those shin pads out there. And if you're on the ice for a third of the game, like you might trip and fall into a couple block shots. So at his price, 2,800, I don't mind it. And then on the Buffalo side, like, I used Jacob Bryson last game. He quickly got out to three. He had the first 3 shots on goal for Buffalo in the last game. I mean, he's 2,600. I agree. Like, I'd probably go to Matt Irwin first since he's a shot blocking machine. But like, Jacob Bryson, he's a young kid, not a bad play. 2,600 if you need a punt, like really low min price.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm probably not in on either goalie here. I think Jerry's a bit too expensive on the road, and I'm not playing Hutton.
Agreed.
Okay, all right. Let's move it along to our next game then. One that I hate to say it, but I just don't have a lot of interest in. Maybe you do. We'll talk about it. The Islanders, with a 3.1 implied goal total, are going into New Jersey, and the Devils have a 2.5 implied goal total. Now, the reason I said I didn't have a ton of interest is because as of right now, we still don't know what the lines are going to be. Anders Lee got hurt on Thursday night. It looks like he's going to be out for a while. They had different guys going to the top line. JG Pajot went up there for a few shifts. Michael Dalcol was up there for a few shifts. Anthony Beauvillier was up there for a few shifts. We just don't know what the Islanders' top line is going to look like at the moment. That's kind of why I'm off the Islanders right now. And I'm not in too much on New Jersey either because it's a terrible matchup for them. But maybe you see something different here. What do you see, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I like the Islanders' top line. I just need to see who's there. If it's Beauvillier, right, that line is moderately priced, and it's a good matchup. Like, the Devils are one of the worst teams in the NHL. If it's Michael Dalcol, I'm probably going to be off the Islanders' top line. If it's like, we really have to see, like, if it's an unfortunate top line, if put Michael Dalcol up top, I want to see what the second line is, because if it's Beauvillier, Nelson, Bailey, I might have some interest in there. So it's really line dependent here. I do like the combo of Barzal and Eberle, but again, it's really dependent on who's up there. So it's really hard for me to say what I want to do. I will say, like, okay, we'll assume it's Beauvillier. I will have some of that top line. If it is Beauvillier, Nelson, and Bailey on the second line, I'll have some of that second line. But I'm not going crazy in this game. The Islanders do have a pretty decent total, but it's just hard because you saw they put up 6 goals when Lee got hurt against the Devils last game, but it was all over the place. It really wasn't concentrated to 1 or 2 lines. All 4 lines got involved. So with these lines up in the air, I'm probably going to be underweight on the Islanders, and I agree with you. I'm going to be underweight on the Devils here. Maybe in 150, I'll have some of this top line if it's Zaka Hughes and Palmieri. But other than that, like, on a 10-game slate, this game isn't really jumping off the page as something I need to get into my lineups. Yeah.
I will mention one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be like you. I'm going to see what the lineup looks like at warm-up, because it's about 15-4 to get that line in, assuming it's Anthony Beauvillier on the top line. And that's roughly the same price as something like Nash one, old St. Louis one, old Montreal one. So, like, if you have other mid-price stacks, you're playing 20 lineups, you have other mid-price stacks, and all of a sudden you see it's Beauvillier, Barzal, and Eberle, you can easily make that swap right at warm-up. It's just a matter of whether or not you're going to be around at warm-up for that swap. It's funny you bring up that game. I wrote that note the last time the Islanders, Pittsburgh, and Washington on Thursday combined for 15 goals, and no player on their top line, on their respective top lines, had more than 1 point. So, we touted all those teams. They scored 15 goals, and no top player got more than 1 point. Those things just happen in NHL DFS. So, yeah, I'm with you on the Islanders. I have a couple stacks that I'm going to make that I'll be able to swap over if it is Beauvillier on the top line. If it's Dal Cole, I probably will just stay off the Islanders altogether. That's probably about it for me from this game. Like even defensemen, I don't have a ton of interest. Jake and I talked the last show about Ryan Pulock's declining shot rate. Like the Islanders don't take many penalties, so even the New Jersey power play guys might not get that much power play ice time tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big Pulock guy at 5,100. Noah Dobson, I guess if you're going for power play one is okay as well. Adam Pellich if you're punting, but really I'm not really interested on much on the blue line. There are so many better spots around the same prices in other games.
Yeah, I agree. Like somebody like Pelech or Vatanen, but like you said, I think there are defensemen elsewhere that we like better. All right. Let's move it along to our next game then. I think one that we'll have a lot more interest in, and that's the game featuring the Washington Capitals. Washington with a 3.0 implied goal total. They're going into Philly. The Flyers have a 3.1 implied goal total. We talked about the Caps the other night. We talked about them. I think it was Thursday night. And like I said, they went out and scored 5 goals, and nobody on the top line had more than 1 point. Those things kind of happen. Ilya Samsonov starting, Brian Elliott starting. I think there's interest up and down both lineups. So why don't you just take it away and let us know what you like?
Yeah. So we were talking before the show how the Capitals have been one of the best defensive teams in hockey since Kuznetsov has come back, which is a odd sentence if you think about like how Kuznetsov has been in his career, but he's been playing great, like defensively at least. You see his price at 3,800 too, and it's kind of weird. Like you never see Kuznetsov that low, but for me, I like this top line. I like Washington power play. I don't like the 5-on-5 matchup going into Couturier, but I don't mind using this power play in MME. I think you obviously Ovechkin. I'm a big Vrana guy like you. His problem is the minutes. He gets the minutes,
Yep.
He gets the points. And I think, but if he's a little bit priced up at 5,000 for the minutes he gets, so he's probably going to be pretty low owned tonight. I don't mind him as a one-off, but if you want to do like some kind of power play stack, if you're not a big Backstrom guy, you want to go for more like Ovechkin, Oshie, Vrana, Carlson, something like that, I think it's perfectly fine. I also like the second line doing like a Kuznetsov, Vrana going against Philly too. You know, Hayes connecting Lawton, not the best defensive line. Like really once you get past Couturier, there's nothing really to fear defensively from the Flyers. So I like Washington 1 for the power play correlation. I don't love their 5-on-5 matchup, but they fully correlate power play 1. I like Washington 2. And then on the Flyers side, I don't mind Flyers 1 going into the Ovechkin matchup. It's not the best. Like they're kind of expensive. So I'd rather play Pittsburgh 1 over Philly 1 for sure. But in MME, I don't mind having a little bit there. I know Farabee is not on the top power play anymore, so that kind of lowers them down a little bit. And then I'm off the second line since Kuznetsov has come back. That second line has had an expected goals against of under 1, which is crazy good. And I kind of like this third line as long as Eller's out because they're gonna see Hagelin, Dowd, and Hathaway, which is okay, but it's not like anything special. And you get the power play correlation with Voracek and Giroux. I think Nicholas Aube-Kubel is on there instead of Lindblom, which I don't mind. Like 2,500, they're both, the price doesn't change. I like Aube-Kubel. That's a nice filler stack for me. So there's a bunch to like in MME in this game. It's hard for me to land on something in 1 to 3 lineups, but I think this is a great game to MME.
Yeah, I'm with you on that MME aspect, especially where I just checked out our ownership. Our Philly 1 ownership almost doesn't exist. Like Couturier, Farabee, I think all 3 of them are under 1% projected ownership tonight. I don't necessarily disagree with that. And here's the reason. Evgeny Kuznetsov got back to the lineup about a month ago. And we've talked about on prior shows about how good he's been this year, about how good his offensive impacts have been, et cetera, et cetera. But don't forget the rest of the team was kind of fighting COVID. Like there was, I think their first game back, they had 1 regular or 2 regular defensemen in the lineup, and that was it or something like that. But they've been healthy over the last month. And over the last month, they have the second best expected goals against rate in hockey at 5-on-5 next to only Dallas. And it's not as if it's not paying off goaltending or goals wise. Like they have roughly the same goals against like actual goals against per 60 as Boston. This has been an excellent defensive team for the last month. So I think it's one of those cases where I agree with you. In 1 to 3 lineups, I wouldn't play Philly 1. But if I'm playing 150, like I definitely want to get maybe like 5 shares of them in or something like that, because the ownership is just so low that it's almost criminal not to play them if you're playing 150 lineups. But I agree with you. I'm mostly on Washington. I'm going more towards the second line. Kuznetsov, Vrana, we just talked about them. Kuznetsov actually played nearly 18 minutes last game. So he's actually at least getting ice time, especially if Eller is out. So I'm going back to Kuznetsov, Vrana. And again, I'm going to be mixing in some stacks with Ovechkin and Karlsson. Like I want to get some of those power play stacks in this game as well. For the Philly side, one thing I just want to mention is that they're going to probably be getting a new defenseman on their second power play unit, because Eric Gustafsson looks like he's going to be scratched. So I guess it would probably be Travis Sanheim, but I think it'll be one of him or Philippe Myers. So like you can make a nice little secondary PP stack of like Voracek, Giroux, and Sanheim that comes in at like 13K or, between 13 and 14K, and that can still get you up to those more expensive lines. So I do like dumping down to Philly 3 if you want to get cheap, Philly 1 if you're an MME, but this is more about Kuznetsov, Ovechkin, Vrana, and the power play guys from Washington for me. Like I said, on the blue line, I think guys like Sanheim and Myers are in play. On the Washington side, like I think I'm just correlating Karlsson with my Washington power play stacks. I don't know if there's anybody that I'm going to one off from this blue line.
Yeah, and quickly hitting on Philly 3 again, they're not like an average third line, right? They see minutes.
Yeah.
They see, so
like at the worst, they'll get like 15.
Yeah, and their ownership is also wildly low too. So like, if the ownership is the same, I'd rather go to the third line than the first in a limited number amount of lineups. But obviously in MMA, I'd get some shares of both. And I agree with you. If Sanheim's on power play too, I'd definitely do a Giroux, Voracek, Sanheim 3-man. Karlsson, obviously, in your power play stacks, I think you can one off him as well, depending on your build. But that's really about it for me on the defenseman.
Yeah, kind of agree with you there. Goalies, I do like Samsonov here tonight. Cheap price. Like I said, Washington has been good defensively. Don't mind him for 7,500 correlating. I'm assuming you're not paying 7,500 Elliott.
Yeah, I agree with you with Samsonov. Elliott is interesting. I probably won't be there. It's just like if Carter Hart's getting lit up, like it's hard for me to see like Brian Elliott. But like he always surprises me and has good games, but he's not someone I'd go, yep, let's get Brian Elliott in the lineup.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I agree with that. Not rushing to get Brian Elliott into my lineups. All right. The next game is one that's going to draw a lot of interest, probably from only one side, but we have to talk about both. Nashville with a 2.1 implied goal total are going into Tampa Bay. The Lightning have a 3.5 implied goal total, one of the highest on the slate, if not the highest, I believe. Ryan Ellis still out for Nashville. Dante Fabro still suspended for Nashville. And Roman Josi still out for Nashville. So they have Matthias Ekholm and a bunch of guys on the blue line. Guys like Davies, Carrier, Benning were around the 20-minute mark. Davies running the top power play unit. It was kind of a mess for Nashville in the last game as they got slaughtered 5-1 by Carolina. But that's probably what's going to drive a lot of ownership to Tampa Bay here tonight. So what do you like from the Bolt side, Josh?
I think all 3 lines are in play for Tampa tonight. I think that top line is in a really good matchup. I don't really like Cirelli's price at 6,000, and he's not on the top power play. So I think like if you want to go Palat Point and Killorn, you save $800 and you get full power play 1 correlation. If you want to pay up to Stamkos, you could do that. Palat Point Stamkos. Well, I like the second line as it is, like Killorn, Gordon, Stamkos. It's a little bit cheaper than the top line. You get 2 guys on power play 1. You can get them in with Hedman. It gets a little pricey if you're trying to go Palat Point, Stamkos, Hedman. You're going to have to get a little bit funky there. But like I think it's warranted. Like 3.5 total against a team that's just completely beat up on the blue line. Pekka Rinne he's not the goalie he was even 2 years ago when he was already declining from like 5 years ago. So I think this is all about Tampa Bay. I think you can mix and match. And if you really need a cheap line, I like this third line, Johnson, Coleman, Gaudreau. I'm a big Coleman guy. He doesn't see power play time, but you get power play 2 with Johnson. Not that you're playing Tampa for power play 2, but that line is 6. They're like 9-3 is a full line. Let's get to the Pitt ones, the Vegases, the Edmontons, like all that kind of stuff. And they're a good line, and they're going to get the depth of Nashville, or they get the Johansson line, depending on line matching. But either way, like that doesn't scare me. So I'm all in on Tampa tonight. Tampa 1, Tampa 2, Tampa power play, mix and match. And if you need a cheap filler, Tampa 3. And I'm big on Hedman tonight as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned kind of like the power play stack type things. One, Tampa Bay draws amongst the most penalties in the league. So like they're top 5 by power play opportunities per game. And that's obvious, or sorry, I misread that. They're top 10 by power play opportunities per game. They're sitting at 6th by power play opportunities. So they do draw a fair amount of power plays, and Nashville without Ryan Ellis, Nashville has a below average penalty kill as it is, and Ryan Ellis is probably far and away their best defenseman on the PK. I think that's a big loss. So I guess if you're worried about Tampa Bay being somewhat chalky, I think a power play stack is more than fine in this matchup. Like just straight up, there could be enough goals, even if the power play stack doesn't get there to support 2 lines. But we don't even have that much ownership on them. I was just checking our ownership as you were talking, and by our top stacks tool, we have the Stamkos line a little bit over owned, like a negative leverage, but then we have the point line a little bit under owned as positive leverage. So they're coming in relatively on par with where we have them as a top 2 stack. So like, I don't even think you have to be worried about them being super chalky. So for me in my Tampa stack tonight, I'm power play stacking because I think they might come in a bit higher owned than we're showing. But if you just want to stack the 3-man even strength lines, I have no problem with that at all. I mean, Tampa 2 is pretty much a pseudo top line anyway, right? Like Alex Killorn has been regularly playing like 18 plus minutes a night. Like that, those aren't second line minutes. So yeah, I'm in on Tampa power play mostly. On the Nashville side, I just don't have anything. I don't think they'll be able to move the puck without Ellis and Yossi in the lineup.
Yeah. If you had to go, if like someone's like, you have to play someone from Nashville, and I think I'd one off like Eli Tolvanen.
Yeah, I think for me, it would be like a super cheap defenseman like Alex Carey or Matt Benning or something like that. Like I'm not stacking the Nashville side here tonight. If you are, you have very big cojones, my friend. All right. We definitely have to move it along, but before I do, just want to mention to everybody that we have a little deal going on right now for first-time Awesemo users. You can get 50% off an Awesemo Plus weekly pass if you're a first-time user, and we're doing this to celebrate the start of the NBA's second half. It is going to be a big NBA second half. We have hours of show here at Awesemo every day, so if you want to get into basketball, no better time to do it than now. So to celebrate that second half, we have a special deal for your first-time users. It's 50% off an Awesemo Plus weekly pass when you use the promo code SHAMROCK. That's $15 for full Awesemo Plus access to all DFS sports, including NBA, PGA, NHL, NASCAR, MMA, soccer, esports, and college basketball projections just in time for March Madness. This offer, again, is for first-time users only and is valid through March 17th. Stop guessing, start winning, and join Awesemo Plus today. While you guys are here, if you're not able to catch us on YouTube or any of the other Awesemo shows on YouTube, we're all available on the Awesemo Podcast Network. We've got a podcast for every sport, and we're available on every major platform. So head on over to awesemo.com/podcast to check out the latest. Just leave a 5-star review on one of our podcasts with your Twitter handle or email address, and you'll be eligible to win a free week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. One winner will be awarded every Friday, and reviews will be eligible to win for up to 1 year. Good luck. All right, we have 25 minutes and 6 games, so let's get this rolling. Going into our next game, we have the Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.7 implied goal total. Going into Florida, Florida has a 3.3 implied goal total. Another one of those games where I think there's something to like on both sides here, Josh. So what do you like out of this?
Yeah, so the first thing that I noticed is, so now Mason Marchment has been on this top line for a few games now, and the Barkov-Verhaeghe combo has been very good, but with Duclair and with Vetrano. Now with Marchment up there, the numbers have been slipping a little bit. So I don't mind going to Kane, DeBrincat combo. And looking at their ownership, I thought they'd be lower owned, but we have them projected like 10% and higher, which is kind of worrisome if I'm going there. So maybe with that being the case, I'd be underweight in them, but I don't mind them as a two-man. And then you can put them in with someone on the power play like a Bachwist, or, to depress the price a little bit. I don't mind that. Or if you want to leave off Suter and put in a Soderberg, I think that is fine. And that's kind of how I'm attacking the Panthers, right? I'm kind of off this top line with Mason Marchment. I like this second line getting the depth of Chicago, but I'm not a big Wenberg guy. So my Florida stuff will be Barkov, Huberdeau, Hornquist, something like that. You want to throw in Yandel or Ekblad, make it a full power play sack, that's fine. But for me on the Florida side, it's going to be Florida 2. I'd probably, if I'm MMing, I would have some of that full line with Wenberg, and where I can get up to Barkov, I would. So that's about it for me on the Florida side. Some Florida 2 with Barkov instead of Wenberg. And then on the Hawks side, DeBrincat, Kane, Bachwist. 3-man, the ownership does worry me a little bit. You can throw in Soderberg, but other than that, Kubalik one off. It's like the Derelict campaign in Zoolander. Kubalik. I like him. I think you can one off him, but that's where I'm at for this game.
Yeah, the Chicago ownership really took me back, man. Like, I was coming into the slate, I had kind of the reversed opinions of Chicago and Pittsburgh. Like, I was going to be on Chicago thinking that they wouldn't be chalk, and off Pittsburgh thinking they would be. But it looks like Chicago's going to be chalk and Pittsburgh is not. So I'm kind of like switching my position there. Like, that's probably the way I'm going to approach this. Like, I'm not playing double-digit Chicago on the road. I'm sorry, not on a 10-game slate. Like, the Florida Panthers have been good enough defensively this year, especially where they're going to be matched up against Uyghur and Ekblad almost every minute of 5-on-5. I don't want that matchup at all. So, matchup on the road going into Uyghur and Ekblad at 10% plus on a 10-game slate when they're not even at a huge savings. Like, you're still paying over $18K. I'm out on Chicago at that price. I agree with you on Florida. You kind of want a power play stack that game somehow. Like, I think you definitely want to make sure you get Barkov in your lineups. I don't want to badmouth Alex Wenberg too bad, because we all know what happens when we badmouth Alex Wenberg on this show.
I've been on a roll with bad-mouthing people. They just absolutely just threw me under the bus and ran me over.
Yeah, so we're not going to let Alex Wenberg do that to us tonight. So we'll just say, if you can, make sure you can get Alexander Barkov in your lineups. And like with Anthony Duclair back, like he might be up on the top line by the second period too, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm not super gung-ho on playing Mason Marchment here tonight. And like Joel Kenville is a coach very notorious for just yeeting his younger players to the bottom of the lineup and relying on his veterans. So honestly, don't think Duclair makes it like a bad one-off here tonight. Like maybe he just ends up playing 11 minutes on the fourth line and then you're boned. But I think there's a chance he gets up to the top line.
Yeah, and he's only 300 more than Marchment. So like I don't mind putting in Duclair there and hope he does see some run on the top line, because when it's Duclair, Barkov, or Hagee, that line is dangerous.
Yeah, they are. I'm assuming on the blue line, like I like Calvin DeHaan. I think DeHaan might see some shot volume here tonight into his shin pads, but other than that, probably just correlating with my power play stacks or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. And then on the Florida side, Strawman's back, which kind of, I don't know what that really does to Gustav Forsling, but his price is up to 3,500 now. It was fun when he was under 3,000, but now that he's in the mid threes, it's see you later until your price comes back down.
Yeah, I think Forsling night is over indeed. Are we playing the Kevin Lankinen? Are we playing the Blankinen?
Yeah, at 7,100, I think you got to take some stabs in MMA just because, Florida is going to get some power plays. They're going to get a lot of shots on net. Um, again, like you can say X goalie is 7,000. I'm going to be interested as long as he stops the shots, right? So, like,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Gotcha. I'm in on Lankinen as well. Before we get to the next game, I saw we have a super chat from Matt Niehaus. Thank you very much. He asked if doing a 4-2-2 in single entry, do you want your two-man minis to be players that are more correlated on 5v5 or the power play? I will say on a 10-game slate, it's more 5-on-5 because I'm not super concerned about ownership because I think ownership will be spread out enough where I don't need to put like Kuznetsov and Ovechkin in the same lineup to try to get different, where if it was a 4 or 5 game slate or something like that. So I think obviously you would like both. You'd like both 5-on-5 and the power play. But I think on a slate as big as this, assuming these are, more players more on the cheap side, I would probably go to even strength stacks over power play stacks.
yeah. So, like, if you break down a 4-2-2, right? If you're putting in the 4, it's probably going to be a full line with the power play quarterback. So that leaves one defensive spot. So, like, one of your two mans is going to have to be a skater and a defenseman. So there you could go power play correlation. But the one left over, the two man that's left over, if you're putting in both like a center and a wing or a wing and a wing, I'd probably focus on 5-on-5 there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think when you're right. If you have a defenseman, I think you can get away with that on the power play. But at 5-on-5, I think you definitely want your forwards playing together at even strengths. Thank you very much for the super chat, Niehaus. Always happy to answer questions. Josh and I are usually around in Slack, so if you can't get a question in on the YouTube chat, feel free to hit us up or Jake or anybody else in Slack. We will try to help as best we can. All right, moving along. What I want to say might be the main event of the entire slate. We have the Winnipeg Jets with a 2.8 implied goal total going into Toronto. The Leafs have a 3.7 implied goal total. Some news from the Leafs side includes Zach Hyman jumping to the top line and Joe Thornton moving down to the second line with Tavares and Nylander. So a little bit of a change there. I'm assuming Toronto's going to come in relatively popular tonight. We'll see what the run looks like later with Hyman on the top line, but we have Austin Matthews as the highest owned skater on the slate, which isn't a big surprise. So with these new lines, what do you like here, Josh?
Yeah. So Hyman up there makes their line a little bit better offensively and a little bit weaker defensively. Not like super, but Joe Thornton has been great defensively up there. It's interesting because like they're going to get the Scheifele-Wheeler matchup, and Scheifele-Wheeler without Stastny, like that line, it was one of the worst 5-on-5 lines in the league. Now you put Stastny up there, their numbers have come back down to earth a little bit, but probably because they've been playing the Leafs a bunch, but they're still very good defensively with Stastny up there, which is crazy. Like, because Scheifele and Wheeler were just atrocious with Dubois or Connor or Ehlers or Kopp, whoever it was. Like, they were just bad. But for whatever reason, Stastny has stabilized that line defensively. So if Toronto 1's going to be super chalk, which Matthews is always the highest owned player on the slate, he's probably going to score. But I don't want to play 7,900 for Marner. And the price goes up with Hyman now, and he's not on power play 1. This is like, I'd still rather play Pitt 1 here than Toronto 1. So for me, I'm looking towards these second lines. I like listen, you know my rant about Joe Thornton, but he's not going to be on the top line. He's going to get the power play correlation with Tavares. And Nylander, outside of Matthews, has arguably been the best Leaf. So I like the second line. They're going to get the Dubois, Connor, Ehlers matchup, which, is okay. Like, Dubois is a nice player, but he's not a great defensive center. This is going to be a pretty high event both ways. So I think both these second lines are in play. I'm kind of in 1 to 3 lineups. I'm off both of these top lines. Obviously you can MME them for sure. But in 1 to 3, I definitely have to consider both these second lines. And then if you really need a cheap filler, I even don't mind this Toronto third line of Kerfoot, Soup, and Engvall, but like you don't really have to get there. But in MME, if you're trying to if you're going to be like way over the field on Pit 1 or way over the field on Edmonton, you're going to need some unique like cheap fillers. So I don't mind going to Toronto 3 in a deep MME if you're going heavy on those expensive lines.
Yeah, I think Toronto 3 probably makes sense in this matchup. I'm with you on Toronto 1. I don't have any Matthews, Marner, Hyman stacks in my lineup. The Matthews injury is still scaring me. Like we talked about it a few days ago, and then he went out and scored 2 goals that night. But like we said, they weren't shots. One was a deflection from the point. One was a redirection from a pass up from the board. So I guess if they can keep doing that, he can keep scoring. But if he's not firing the puck, 5 times a game, I worry about his value. So I'm out on Toronto 1. I'm with you. I'm more in on Toronto 2. That actually brings Jake Muzzin into play for me as well. He's been probably about as good as Morgan Riley on a per game basis this year, fantasy wise. And the thing I want to bring up about the power plays in this game is that these are 2 teams that are both bottom 10 by time shorthanded. Like neither team takes very many penalties, and neither team is in the top half of the league by power play opportunities per game. Like in the first 2 games, there were 7 total power plays between these 2 teams. That would be about average for one game. So like where in the past, like I'd say, power play stack, if you want a power play stack Winnipeg and MME, I guess that's fine. But I'm pretty much out on Winnipeg entirely here tonight. I'm just not in on the Jets. I think it's a bad matchup. They make hay on the power play. I just don't think they get enough opportunities to really break a slate here tonight. So I'm out on Winnipeg, in with you on Toronto 2, Tavares and Nylander and Thornton. And I'm using some Muzz and some Riley. I'm going back and forth between the 2. On the blue line, there's absolutely no one that interests me from the Winnipeg side. Toronto, I'm basically just correlating where I can, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, on Winnipeg, if you're using that second line, I think Neil Pionka is the guy you want to use. I'm not a big Morrissey guy at all, but if you are using the top line, I guess you could put in Morrissey. He doesn't really do much for me. He does get the power play time, but they probably won't be on the power play too much. So it's Pionka or bust if I'm using Jets. I agree with you with Muzzin. I like Muzzin. If I'm using that top line, I think Riley makes sense. Even the second line, Riley makes sense. But if you don't have the space, I think you can go down to Muzzin.
Yeah, I just kind of like Muzzin in general. Like he's just consistent. That's all I like. All right, Laurent Brossoit in net. We have to talk about him, man. 6,600 on DraftKings. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, MMA, you definitely have to have some. The price is just too cheap for his upside. Even if you don't believe in him as a goalie, he could stop. He could go Mike Smith a few weeks ago. You know what I mean? So like at that price, you got to take some stabs. I wouldn't, make him a priority in your lineups for sure, but I would definitely have some.
Yeah, I agree with you. Definitely get a little bit of Laurent Brossoit in your MMEs. Okay, let's move it along. Next game coming up. Montreal Canadiens have a 2.9 implied goal total. They're going into Calgary. The Flames have a 2.7 implied goal total. As of right now, we still don't really know what the Montreal Lines are going to be like. They changed them up a fair bit in their last game. They were in Calgary on Thursday night. They lost 2-1. It was a back-to-back. But they took Toffoli off the Kotkaniemi and Gallagher line and moved Drouin there for, a handful of shifts. Toffoli moved onto the line with Nick Suzuki and Josh Anderson for a handful of shifts, but then he was moved off. Like, we don't really know what the full lines are going to be. I'm assuming Kotkaniemi and Gallagher are going to be a duo. I assume Suzuki and Anderson are going to be a duo, and that Tatar, Armia, and Danault just stay together. But where Toffoli plays, where Toffoli and Drouin play, which line, we don't really know, and that changes things because Toffoli's been one of the best goal scorers in hockey this year.
Yeah, and that Toffoli Gallagher line, I would imagine. Who did they match up with? Did they see this? Did they get the top comp, or was it?
Yeah, they got Backlund Mangiapane. Well, that's not the top. I would consider that the top comp, but
yeah, me too. So like Suzuki, Drouin, and Anderson's going to get that Gaudreau, Monahan, Ritchie matchup, which is where you want to be against the Flames. if that line, luckily this game's at 7 p.m., right?
Yeah.
Why is this game? Never mind.
It's Montreal, Calgary hockey night in Canada.
Hockey night in Canada, which is good. So like we're gonna get to see the line. So if it is Drew and Suzuki, Anderson, that's the line I want to go against the Monahan Gaudreau Ritchie line. If it is still Brett Ritchie night. I also like this Kotkaniemi Gallagher 2-man. I know they're gonna get the Lindholm Kachuk pairing, but Dubé, I don't want to ruffle the Dubé feathers, but really this is an MME game type for me. I like Markstrom in this game. So in 1 to 3 lineups, it's hard to get anywhere, not completely knowing the lines. I'm not a huge fan of the Flames lines 5-on-5. So I'm kind of going to be underweight in my 1 to 3. And then I'm going to MME, assuming the lines stay as they are. If you want to take some stabs on the Lucic, Backlund, Mangiapane line, I think you can as well. It's not a great matchup, but their ownership is coming in under 1%. So I think you can take some MME stabs. But for me, this is an MME game, and I'm probably going to be underweight on it.
Yeah, the one line that stuck out to me from Montreal was Tatar, Danault, Armia. Because that middle six, along with Suzuki and Anderson, saw pretty much all of the Gaudreau, Monahan, Ritchie matchup. And that's just a fantastic matchup for those lines. Joel Armia has 31 shots on goal in his last 11 games. That's almost 3 shots a game. Danault can be kind of rough, but I definitely want to play the center if the wingers are going to be scoring. So that Montreal third line is actually one of my more favorite filler stacks on the night. Calgary, I'm pretty much out on Calgary altogether. I think like their ownership is pretty much in check, which is fine, but I think this is just a bad matchup. Maybe if you want a power play stack, that's fine, but that's about it for me. I like Markstrom. Markstrom is one of my favorite goalies in the slate. Do you agree?
Yeah, I like both goalies actually. Like, I'm not a huge carry price guy, but like he's always like 8,000 at 7,200. I think you can take some stabs. You just hope that Montreal stays off the penalty kill because that is not pretty.
Yeah, I agree with you there. All right, moving along to a game that we saw just last night. We have the Vegas Golden Knights going into St. Louis. Vegas has a 2.8 total. The St. Louis Blues have the exact same implied goal total. St. Louis completely messed up their lines last night. We have absolutely no idea what they're going to be. I mean, they even broke up Perron and Shen. Perron and Shen, who had been together pretty much all year. Those two even got broken up. So we legitimately have no idea what the St. Louis lines are going to be. Vegas, assuming they're just going to run back the same lineup they played. So what do you like?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say because, like, if it is Sanford, O'Reilly, Perron, they're definitely going to get the Stevenson, Stone, Pacioretty matchup, which kind of, like, I love playing Vegas one, but going against O'Reilly, Perron has sludge written all over it.
Yeah.
Like, they just love to grind it out. And so if that's the case, I'm going to be underweight on these top lines. They're not in consideration for me in 1 to 3. You move down into the second lines, Marchessault, Carlson, Smith. They're going to see how the Blues finish. Sammy Blais, Braden Shen, Tarasenko.
Yeah.
If that's the case, like I think you can use both these second lines here. And if the third line's Hoffman, Sundqvist, Kyrou, I think that's a third line you can go to as well. They're cheap enough where you can get in the lines that you want. Hoffman and Kyrou get secondary power play time. You can put them in with Falk or DFS darling Vinny Dunn. You just got to be aware of the line changes. So unfortunately, this isn't a 7 p.m. Eastern start, so you are going to have to be around for the warm-ups, which could be a good chance to get an unknown line if they do completely blender it and they have a combo that you like. So I think you just got to pay attention there. So for me, in my 1 to 3, I'm going to be underweight on Vegas 1. I will consider Vegas 2, and I think you can MME Vegas 1 and 2. And depending on the Blues lines, I like the second and the third line.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I'll just say I'm completely out on St. Louis. I'm not dealing with the late line swaps. 2, they just haven't looked good. Like, I'm sorry. I know they're putting up goals, but they look like garbage on the ice. I honestly think that Parayko injury has really messed up this team a lot more than we realized. So I'm in a lot on Vegas too, just going right back to them here tonight. On the blue line, I like Marco Scandella, super cheap. Played 23 minutes his last 7 games. So that's a punt guy I like.
Yeah. Let's see. Dylan Coughlin, man. But he's up to 3,600. If he was 2,500, I'd say.
I mean, he's getting some power play run too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think Braden McNabb, 2,500. If you need a min price guy, but I like Shea if you're using the top line or as a one-off. Alec Martinez is always a nice one-off. He's kind of like a Muzzin type guy for me, and then that's really about it.
Yep, I agree. All right. We've got about 6 minutes left and we got 2 games to get through. So let's get through those games. Another game that's running back from last night, San Jose with a 2.8 implied goal total, Anaheim at home with a 2.7 implied goal total. Anaheim got throttled last night, 6-0. They broke up the top line, but Getzlaf and Comtois did stay together for the Ducks. I'm going back to the Meyer. I'm going to the Meyer Hurdle second line. They looked good last night. Hopefully they can look good again.
Yeah, and Hurdle's price went down. He's 3,400. 3,400 for Tomas Hurdle? Like, come on. So, like, even if you don't want to use Matt Nieto, like, it's easy to get in Hurdle, Meyer, and Burns, like that 3-man. Like, I'm going right back there. Their ownership is under 5%. Timo Meier is coming in at 2.4. That may come up as we get closer to lock, but like they're not anywhere close to double digits. So I agree. Going back to San Jose 2. I don't mind going back to San Jose 1. They've been a very good line. They're going to get any one of the Ducks lines, probably the Getzlaf line. Like, it doesn't really matter. They throttled them last night. San Jose 1's more of an MME play for me. San Jose 2, I definitely have to consider in my 1 to 3. With Brent Burns, he is up to 7,100, which is pricey. If you are using the top line, Erik Karlsson. On the Ducks blue line, kind of off them unless you want to punt like Ben Hutton if you need a min price guy, but that's really about it.
Yeah, I don't think I have a single player from the Ducks in my lineups here tonight, and I don't feel bad about that whatsoever. I agree with you. I'm in on San Jose 2 mostly. San Jose 1 for some MME. All right, we got 1 game left to get to before I get to it. Just want to mention that we have some free stuff on the site like we always do. Tonight we have MMA fighter projections. We have NHL player and top stack rankings, and we have NBA player rankings. So if you want to have your MMA, your NHL, or your NBA needs covered, you can go over to Awesemo.com tonight because we have some free stuff up for you. All right, last game to get to. Edmonton, 3.4 implied goal total. They just put up 6 goals last night, but they're going into Vancouver. The Canucks have a 3.0 implied goal total. The one thing that really jumped out to me and is just absolutely blowing my mind is 2 of the top 3 owned stacks by projection that we have projected for ownership here tonight are Vancouver stacks.
Yeah,
we have the Horvat line at 13.5% and the Miller line at 13.3%, the 2 of them being the worst leverage stacks on the entire slate. I don't know where this ownership is coming from. I guess it's pricing because both lines come in under 15K. But like, if we're getting low teens on Vancouver with no Elias Pettersson, I have no problem saying no thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And people love playing the Canucks. And I don't know why. Right? So, like, Pettersson's out. I would go to Pettersson, Miller, Besser if they're together. They're going to get – I don't know. Like, it's just this ownership is keeping me off them. If this is, like, legit ownership, I'm going to see the later run. I'm going to be under the field on Vancouver for sure. And you look at Connor McDavid's ownership at 6.5%. Obviously, he's probably going to be higher than that, but he's going to be well lower owned than Matthews. He's $400 more. He's on a back-to-back on the road. But I think this is a good spot for the Oilers, especially like Vancouver's just bad defensively. Bad. Like if we were, I don't know, like this is a spot where I want to power play stack the Oilers, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. The Oilers are top 10 by power play opportunities per game, and the Vancouver penalty kill is 14% worse than the league average. So,
So like normally I'm off back-to-back teams on the road in other seasons, but this is like COVID times. There's a lot of back-to-backs on the road. This is Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. The two-man is 17-8, which is wild pricing, but like we did it on a shorter slate. Why not do it on a bigger slate when you're going to get lower ownership? I think this is the time to do it.
yeah, especially where I think those two guys, I think they could come in around 10% legitimately. And if we can get them at 10% on the road, I don't really care about the matchup too much. All right, Josh, I'm going to ask you for your favorite value line on the night before we get out of here. I'm going to say my favorite value line on the night is Washington 2. I love Kuznetsov and Vrana here tonight. They're my value line for the night. What do you like?
Yeah, I like I'm going to say Vegas 2, which is kind of like a cop-out because they're going to be popular, but they're always cheap and they're always good.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it's a 10-game slate. You definitely want to make sure you get, even if they're 10%, you definitely want to make sure you get some of them because they're good enough. You know, we saw it last night to get into winning lineups. All right. That'll do it for us here today. Remember, if you're here, please like and subscribe. It will help us grow the channel. Ding that bell if you want to get notifications whenever we get on the air. For our producer, Tyler, for our Jedi Master, Josh Harris, this is Michael Clifford, a.k.a. Slim Cliffy, saying good luck tonight, everyone.
Fuck.